Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Radio Show. We're broadcasting from Phoenix, Arizona, where I say it's either heaven or hell, and right now it's heaven. It'll soon be hotter than hell. And our guest today is my good friend, he's also my neighbor, it's Lieutenant Colonel Rodney Glassman. He's an Air Force Lieutenant Colonel. He's an attorney. He's a Judge Advocate General. And he and I were chatting when I was in the Marine Corps. I was a pilot. And I had a Captain Abrams from the Marine Corps JAG on my ass. And boy, he was a smart dude. I tried lying, cheating, stealing, but he caught me every move I made. And so finally, I tell this story to everybody. This is back in the 70s. I said, I give up. I'm just going to go and tell the truth. And I went in to see Captain Abrams, again, the Attorney General for the Marine Corps base in Hawaii. I told him the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. I was flying women. I was flying drunk, having a good time. And that's what happens when you give a Marine a helicopter, put him in Hawaii, and have a good time. And so Captain Abrams just nailed me to the cross, man. And I couldn't hide and I couldn't steal. I couldn't do anything anymore. He had me so caught me lying everywhere. So I walked in and said, I'm telling you the truth. And I said, Captain, how many years will I be in jail? And he looked up at me and he says, Lieutenant, you're a free man, honorable discharge. And I tell that story to everybody because it really does come to my personal experience of the truth will set you free. I just told him the truth. I stopped lying. And then this year, 2026, I'm the Veteran of the Year in an upcoming parade in Washington, D.C. And I'm glad I didn't hide that, because I'd have to turn the honor down. But I've been more than upfront about one of the biggest mistakes I made was lying to Captain Abrams, Marine Corps JAG. So anyway, our guest today is Lieutenant Colonel Rodney Glassman, Air Force. He's also running for Attorney General of the state of Arizona. And he's been my neighbor for years. And I said, I have no idea what an Attorney General does for the state. And then just recently, my friend, this is my buddy here, the Trump, he fired Pam Bondi, who's the Attorney General of the United States, and says it was a good time to get Rodney on to find out what's the difference between an Attorney General of the state and an Attorney General of the nation. So, Rodney, welcome to the Rich Dad Show.
Robert, thank you for having me on.
Thank you. I could walk to his house right now. We're so close. So, give us a bit of your background and what does you can start by what does an Attorney General do or attorney do in the Air Force first?
Well, thank you. So I am, as you shared, Lieutenant Colonel in the United States Air Force JAG Corps. I'm a reservist now, assigned at Luke Air Force Base. And as a lieutenant colonel in the reserves, what I do when I put on my uniform now to go out to Luke, which is the largest fighter base in the world, I run the active duty legal office. We have over 25 JAGs, paralegals, and support staff. So it's the legal office for the base. We provide all the legal services for the one-star general, that's our wing commander, and all the squadron commanders, everything from civil law to legal assistance, all the way to all of the prosecutions for the entire base, enforcing the Uniform Code of Military Justice. So in my 17 years, I've prosecuted drug dealers and financial crimes and protected victims of sexual assault. And then, as you know, I feed my family and have for almost 20 years as a private sector attorney, where I was a commercial litigator for about a decade, and now I'm a plaintiff's attorney. So as I like to say, I have strangers pay me with their own money to be their lawyer. And that's important.
Good for you. And I'm sure you handle cases like me, some shitbird first lieutenant who's flying helicopters with his girlfriends all over the place. Wondering
You know what, Robert? That's one of the most amazing things about the military, because of the quality of the people that sign up to serve. there is that element of honesty and integrity. In the Air Force, our core values are integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all we do. And as you look at the Uniform Code of Military Justice, as you look at the demeanor of everyone involved in the military service, as you look at President Trump and what also happened this week, which was the brave rescue of that colonel from Iran, as you would say in the Marines, never leaving anyone behind, but an excellent mission where the president not only is committed to fighting for democracy and going after the leadership in Iran, but also making sure that our men and women come home safely. A tremendous beginning to the week and a tremendous Easter weekend.
Yeah, Marines always say we leave nobody behind. You know, that's part of the core. We know we'll be there for them. So I've had to go and pick up guys in the field and all that. A lot of them shot to hell in Vietnam, and bring them home. So it's a very band of brothers and sisters also, because I remember picking up bodies in Vietnam and flying them to like a field hospital, like a MASH unit, and the nurses would run out, and they'd be taking the bodies off the back of the Huey, and all you could do is go like this to the nurses, and the smell of human bodies just piled upon bodies, horrifying. But these young women would just unload them, go back to their duty, patch them up. So it's a very interesting organization to belong to. So with that said, you're running for Attorney General of the state of Arizona. Why?
So, Robert, I'm running for Attorney General to protect our cops, to protect our kids, and to protect Arizona's prosperity. In Arizona, we're one of the 46 states where the Attorney General is elected. And that's a bit different, as you were sharing, than at the federal level, because most business people, most Americans are used to our federal Attorney General. We elect the President of the United States. In Arizona, we elected President Trump by over 5 percentage points. And then the President of the United States gets to appoint his Attorney General, his lawyer. In this case, his first appointment of his term was Pam Bondi. So Pam Bondi...
Be clear. So the President of the United States appoints his own AG, Attorney General.
The President of the United States appoints his own Attorney General, and that Attorney General works for the President of the United States. He gets to pick the attorney that he wants to view the law through the lens with which he's hired them to view it.
And what's different for you is you have to be elected by the people then.
In Arizona, we're one of the 46 states where the Attorney General doesn't work for the governor and the Attorney General doesn't work for the legislature. The Attorney General is supposed to work for the people. And Robert, the reason I say supposed to work for the people is because right now in Arizona, we live in a state where President Trump won by over 5 percentage points, but we also live in a state with an insane Democrat Attorney General who has sued the Trump administration 40 times in the past 15 months. She is sued 40 times.
What's her name?
Her name is Chris Mays. And what she does, because she doesn't work for the people, is she files lawsuits, she sends out press releases, and then she asks liberals across the country to send her money.
So her job is to be Attorney General of Arizona to sue President Trump.
That is what she's chosen to be her job. The true job of the Attorney General in Arizona is to run the largest law office in the state. See, in Arizona, the Attorney General has 400 attorneys and 1,000 support staff providing all the legal services for every state agency. I'll give you a great example, Robert, because I know that you have a lot of business people and entrepreneurs that watch your show. In Arizona, we have over 60,000 realtors in Arizona. And Katie Hobbs, who's our governor, the governor appoints the real estate commissioner. to run the Department of Real Estate. But guess how many lawyers the Department of Real Estate has? None. They're all assistant attorney generals. They're part of that 400 attorneys that work for our elected attorney general. So the attorney general in Arizona is the most powerful, the most impactful elected office in the state, because the attorney general doesn't work for anybody except for the people, which is very different than at the federal level, where the attorney general of the United States works for the president.
So for a guy like me who has lots of real estate in Arizona, she's got nobody on duty. She's got
She is nobody on duty. And if you care about real estate, the Department of Real Estate, if you go to the hospital, Robert, the Department of Health Services in Arizona has no attorneys. They're all assistant attorney generals. For your doctors, the licensing boards, no attorneys, all assistant attorney generals. Even in Arizona, we elect a superintendent of public instruction to run our Department of Education for all the schools. Even the Department of Education in Arizona has no lawyers. They're all assistant attorney generals who work for the elected attorney general. And that's why it's so troublesome when we have an insane Democrat who's more focused on building a resistance resume, suing the president of the United States, than she is focused on protecting cops, protecting kids, protecting Arizona's prosperity, working with President Trump to secure the southern border and enforce the laws we have here at home.
So she has what some people would say Trump derangement syndrome.
Most certainly. Yeah. She was put in office by people that wanted her to hate President Trump, sue to get rid of Arizona's school choice program. Believe it or not, in Arizona right now, Robert, this may surprise you, we have an insane Democrat attorney general who's using our tax dollars to sue the Trump administration because she wants biological boys to compete against girls.
Well, that's what I want too,
That's the insanity.
It's so insane. It's hard to believe that educated people will do that.
The challenge is, Robert, as you know, and there's very few more educated than you, the attorney general at the state level is the most powerful but least understood office, elected office. And that's why my goal, and that's why I'm so appreciative of having this opportunity, is to be able to educate people, because we all have common sense. When we think of attorney general, we think of the president and we think of the U.S. attorney general, because that's what we're most familiar with. When if you are in the business community or the healthcare community, or you have kids in schools, or you care about calling 911 and having a police officer come and feel safe to just make split-second decisions to protect your family without being worried about being sued civilly, we need an attorney general that protects all of those things.
So she's not doing her job playing pure and simple.
Because she plays pure liberal politics, going after cops and kids and the private sector. Robert, our Arizona attorney general right now is suing the hefty garbage bag company using our tax dollars because of how she interprets the consumer fraud statute, because they have the word recycling on their box. She is insane, but she's strategically insane, because every time she goes after President Trump, every time she goes after the business community, she raises money from across the country. I will tell you, on day one as attorney general, I will withdraw Arizona from the 40 clickbait lawsuits that Chris Mace has filed against the Trump administration, and I will rescind all of her political indictments that she has made against good Republicans simply for supporting President Trump.
Okay. So we come back against my neighbor, Lieutenant Colonel Rodney Glassman. I am, full disclosure, I donate to his campaign because of what he just said. I mean, I cannot believe how far left the lefties have gone. They're nuts. They want boys to compete against girls. And, I mean, it's beyond my comprehension. So we come back when I talk to Rodney Glassman about President Trump just let go of Pam Bondi. And she's his attorney general, like she works for the president. get Rodney's point of view as why Trump will let go of his attorney general. We'll be right back.
For decades, Robert Kiyosaki warned the system was fragile. Most people laughed. They aren't laughing anymore. $39 trillion in debt, inflation that won't quit, a dollar that has lost more than 90% of its purchasing power since 1971. That's not instability, that's a collapse in slow motion. Robert's been saying this for 30 years. Savers are losers. Not because saving is wrong, but because saving paper money in a system that keeps printing more of it guarantees one thing: your money buys less. The rich don't save paper, they own real assets, gold and silver, things governments can't print, things that have survived every financial crisis in history. Gold was $35 an ounce in 1971. Today, it's over $4,500 and still climbing. The biggest banks in the world are calling for $6,000 and higher. Most people ignore this. They stay in paper. They will pay the price. You have a choice, but the window won't stay open. Robert has spent 30 years teaching that financial education is the greatest asset you can own. That's why he's partnered with Priority Gold to bring that education directly to you through the Rich Dad Gold Playbook. Call 866-703-9895 or text GUIDE to 24999 to get your free copy. Learn how to move your IRA or 401k into physical gold and silver, tax and penalty free, with up to $10,000 in free silver on qualifying purchases. Call 866-703-9895 or text GUIDE to 24999. Don't say the thing that they keep printing. Own the thing they can't.
Welcome back, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Radio Show. Our guest today is my neighbor, Lieutenant Colonel Rodney Glassman. He's Attorney General at Luke Air Force Base right down the street. And the question is, who watches the attorneys? Like we all obey the law, but who watches the number one lawmaker, the Attorney General? And the reason I support Rodney is because, in my point of view, we have a serious problem with our current Attorney General, who is a left-wing liberal. I don't mind if you're a left-wing liberal. I don't care about all that stuff. But I'd rather watch what you do than what you say. And the question is she doing, her name is Chris May, is she doing a good job protecting Arizona? But it seems she's doing everything but protect Arizona. I mean, look at the booming homeless crisis. Everybody's moving to Arizona because it's a good place to be homeless. And is she doing anything about that? I don't think so, So we have other problems, but she says she's now suing Trump's buddy, Mayor Giuliani, who's a Republican in Florida. ¿Qué pasa? Why is she suing somebody in Florida when we have problems here in Arizona? So what is she doing, Rodney?
So, Robert, as you know, the Attorney General in Arizona is elected by the people and supposed to work for the people, not the governor or the legislature, doesn't work for the president. And what we have in our current Attorney General, Chris Mays, is an insane Democrat who files lawsuits to forward her political career. She's building a resistance resume. Arizona is a red state. President Trump won by over 5 percentage points, yet Chris Mays has sued the administration over 40 times. Every time she files a lawsuit, every time she goes on TV, it's to forward her own political career. I don't know if you saw about a month ago, Chris Mays was on TV talking about when she thinks it's okay for Arizonans to shoot ICE agents.
Oh,
that
ICE
is
stands for, what does it stand for?
The Immigration Customs Enforcement. She thinks it's okay for Arizonans to shoot law enforcement officers. That is how bad this woman is. She doesn't think that police officers should be able to ask drivers for their driver's license and for their citizenship because she thinks it might be discriminatory. As you know, Arizona has the first in the nation, best in the nation school choice program where parents get to choose where their kids go to school. She's trying to eliminate that. You're familiar. It's a business enterprise, Kalshi. the marketization, people being able to choose where they make investments, where they make bets. She just sued and indicted the leadership of Kalshi last week. Why? Because every time she files a lawsuit, she sends out a press release. She asks liberals across the country to send her money. But because at the federal level, the president appoints the attorney general, yet at the state level, it's an elected office. It's my job as the candidate running to protect Arizona's cops, kids, and prosperity, to educate Arizonans that it's an elected office. And my goal and my job of attorney general is to run the largest law office in the state with over 400 attorneys and 1,000 support staff focused on protecting Arizonans.
So, to be speculative, what's her next step? Is it president or is it governor?
The word is that she wants to run for governor, but first she wants to get reelected this November. And so right now I'm focused on a Republican primary. My Republican primary is in July. As you know, I'm a lieutenant colonel out at Luke Air Force Base. I'm a JAG in the reserves. When I put on my uniform, I go out and run the active duty legal office of all the JAGs, paralegals, and support staff, and I'm a private attorney. And Robert, in our Republican primary, which is coming up, it's crazy because I only have one opponent. He's 50 years old. I'm 47, to put it into perspective. He's a termed out state legislator that got his law license 25 months ago. No experience, no clients. He's never prosecuted a case, zero experience. But as you know, until I first educate on what the job is, voters don't know how to pick, how to hire an attorney. And so that's what this process is about. And that's why I'm so appreciative to talk about it with you.
So again, I just can't believe what's happening on the national level here. Trump, he's got war going on here, war going on there. I'm very proud of our military. They're hitting with precision. It's a different type of warfare. That's precision warfare. But at the same time, you have Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of the United States, and everybody wants to know who's on Epstein's list. But if you're on the list, you don't want to know. I go, well, how come he didn't invite me? It's like this going on. So many hot subjects that are hot. They're just not ordinary subjects. So I'll finish talking to Rodney here. I'm a capitalist. I had to learn how to raise money. So Rodney is a really kind of a funny story of how I was coaching him how to raise money because I want him to win, Attorney General of Arizona. So you made some corrections on how you pitch for money, because everybody's asking me for money right now. Everybody's running for office, but I think your pitch is brilliant. So what have you learned working with me on how to pitch asking for money?
Well, Robert, you taught me that no one's interested in investing until they understand the value in the investment, and that requires education. So the reality is, and thank you for letting me share, the Attorney General is the most powerful and impactful elected office in the state. That's the reality. If you're a business person or a doctor, or you just care about your kids or police officers, the only person that can protect cops, kids, and prosperity is the Attorney General, because they work for the people. And so when I go out into the community, I ask, has anyone ever invested in an Attorney General race before? And not a single hand goes up. Not a single hand. And these are people that go to meetings and are active Republicans and care about the community. I then pose the question, if I can educate you on why this is the most important race in 2026, I'm going to ask for an investment. And the reality is, if you care about enforcing Arizona's election laws, or you care about protecting our cops, you care about our kids, or you care about the business community, or you care about supporting President Trump and securing the border, this is the job. And by the end of my presentation, I ask everyone in the audience for $1 for each of the 40 lawsuits that Chris Mays, our insane Democrat, has filed against the Trump administration.
Yes.
And the reality is, when we started this back in December, I was asking for $26 because that's how many lawsuits there were. But the Attorney General, Chris Mays, wakes up every morning and decides how she's going to sue President Trump, because her whole fundraising model, Robert, is she files a lawsuit, she sends out a press release, and she asks liberals across the country to send her money. So why shouldn't I be able to do the same? And so now we have a button on our website at rodneyglassman.com where people who have never contributed to any candidates before, they love President Trump, but they've never even contributed to him, can click on that button at rodneyglassman.com, make their first political contribution. And I like to remind everyone, Robert, you'll appreciate this. I say, you got to do it today because the price is only going to keep going up.
Bravo! You've turned into a salesman like me. Brilliant. That's because as a person who loves Trump, every time she sues him, it pisses me off. So what you've done is you've made it personal to me, the guy who's going to write the check, because this is a big problem. I'm invited to every fundraiser in town. And, how much is enough? What's the law of this? I don't want to look cheap and all this. So, she sued him 40 times. I'll take $40 right now. It puts a number there.
Well,
Brilliant.
and you get invited to everything, and you're involved in everything, and you're philanthropic. But what we found out is the reality is most parents, most school teachers, most business people, most realtors. Remember, there's 60,000 realtors in Arizona, but most realtors have never made a political contribution because until you understand why, you don't want to, because it doesn't make any sense. And so my job with your great tutoring has been to educate on what the job is and then explain the best way to make an investment. I was in Kingman, Arizona, Robert, about a month ago, giving my presentation, and a lady was all upset because I was asking for $35. And she said, last time you were here, you were only asking for $28. And I said, the price goes up, but it's not mine. We have to fire Chris Mays. That's the only way to get this to stop. And then I tell them, I say on day one, I'll withdraw the lawsuits against President Trump and rescind the political indictment. So I tell them what I will do once I am there, but it starts by asking for their help. And that's why I appreciate your help so much.
Well, it's brilliant. You monetize the price. That is absolutely brilliant. You're a capitalist, not bad for an Air Force guy, but that's really, really, really brilliant, because if you hate people who sue Trump, they'll write that check. And like I said, the question always is, well, how much is enough? But you monetized what it's worth. So congratulations, and I wish you the best of luck running for the Attorney General of the state of Arizona. And I'm sure you're probably running for governor next. So anyway, you keep going, turning into a brilliant fundraiser, which, as you know, is essential to being a politician. You can't raise money, you don't win races. So congratulations, Rodney.
Thank you for your support, Robert.
Welcome back. I want to thank Rodney Glassman for his contribution as to what the Attorney General of a state does versus the Attorney General of a country does, or the United States does. And most importantly here is this, is I've been not the best citizen. A lot of times, voting is kind of a pain in the butt, so I don't vote, or I'm not interested. But as older I get, the more I realize I better pay attention, whether I like them, or whether I win or lose, whether I agree or disagree. It's important to pay attention to the people running our country, and also support them with your money to vote. So thank you very much, and let's become more proactive in our government. Thank you.
This podcast is a presentation of Rich Dad Media Network.